I love animation. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole video. You don't have to watch the rest.
I paid $20 for that? Seriously? How uninspired of you, nerd.
Although, you probably should watch the rest because I didn't mention what kind of animation I love. And it's something I'd like to call 2.5D animation, which is when 2D animation elements and 3D animation elements mix together in the same space. And if you stick around, I can give you the exact details about why I love it.
Alright, nerd, enlighten me. What details are those then? Why do you love this 2.5D animation so much?
I am so glad you asked, Strawman. But in order to explain why I love this style of animation so much, I need to go back to the beginning. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines animation as... Actually, nah, I'm not doing this. I'll be blunt. This video isn't a history lesson on how animation came about, how the style of animation came into fruition, or how the term 2.5D animation even entered people's vocabulary. This is a video about why I love this style of animation, and why animation as a whole means so much to me. No more, no less. I've done my best to make this video entertaining, but if you want the history of the Spider-Verse style of animation, then you have come to the wrong place. Now that we've gotten that cleared up, let's go back to the proper beginning. My beginning with 2.5D animation. As shocking as it sounds, my first introduction to this style of animation wasn't the most obvious example. The movie didn't even have a trailer by the time I took my first steps into what would soon become my new obsession. Well, what did spark my interest in 2.5D animation, you may be wondering? Why, it was none other than the Peanuts movie and the Captain Underpants movie. Yeah, I know, very random choices, but it's true. I know these are kids' movies that I saw when I was a kid, so maybe I'm looking at them through some nostalgia glasses here. But I've had one thought that lingered in the back of my mind for years, ever since I saw those two movies for the first time. I really like how doodly and cartoony that looked. Which, if I translate from a 9-year-old's thoughts, means... I like how those movies mixed 2D elements with 3D ones and blended them together in such a satisfying way. Even when I was a dumb little kid, I realized that what I liked most in animation was mixing 2D and 3D animation together. Something about those two movies spoke to me, but I never figured out what it was. At the time, every major movie getting pushed to me was just a normal Disney or Pixar style of animation. Everything had to look as hyper-realistic as possible, and no matter how cartoony the characters themselves looked, the way they looked on the inside wasn't enough for my child brain. This brand new thing I had found, I thought, was a one-and-done thing. I figured that the fire these two movies started through their style of animation just wouldn't be fueled again. And my tiny self thought they had to come to terms with that, unfortunately. Then Into the Spider-Verse came out! My dear viewers, what could I possibly say about this movie that hasn't been said already? You know this movie changed the animation industry. I know this movie changed the animation industry. And for the few people who somehow don't know about one of the most popular superhero movies ever made, about one of the most popular superheroes ever made, maybe you watch the movie or pick up a comic book? How do you not know about Spider-Man by now?
Alright, nerd, we get it. You're not gonna give a lore dump about the Spider-Verse movies. What are you gonna say then?
What am I going to say? What am I going to say? Strawman, I'm going to talk about how beautiful this movie is. The hatching, the imperfect ink lines around the eyes, the pop-ups ripped straight from the comics. Even to how the characters are modeled, with the right mix of realism to be appealing to the average comic book reader, but still simple enough for an actual artist to draw out on a panel. I'm not the only one who noticed that, right? Who knew that in order to make a comic book movie successful, you just had to make it look like an actual comic book? I legit thought it couldn't get any better. But then the sequel, Across the Spider-Verse, came out, and... Oh?
Easy.
My...
See you back home, Spider-Man.
God. I thought Sony peaked with this art style with their first Spider-Verse movie. But no, it's crazy how much they cooked considering how this movie is so fucking raw! They took everything about the first movie and dialed it up to 100, making it look so much more incredible than I ever could have expected. The watercolor world of Earth 65 is my absolute favorite. I feel like I'm in an actual painting. And Miles' comic book world is so much sharper and clearer than it was before, and the comic book elements are amplified by tenfold. It's incredible. Like, are you seeing this? These visuals are amazing! And the faces. Oh my god, the faces. I love how everyone's faces are drawn in this movie. Miguel's face is literally just an octagon, and I love him for it. I find it so incredible that he and the other characters can look so real while still looking incredibly stylized. It's so damn cool to me. Across the Spider-Verse is my favorite animated movie of all time because of this, at least until Beyond comes out. It takes everything about the first movie's wonderful style of animation and just makes it so much better. Sony, whatever you're doing over there, keep doing it because it's working. But maybe pay your animators next time. And don't even get me started on the other movies and shows that were inspired by the Spider-Verse art style. Too late! Now, I'm going to be clear here. I have zero proof that any of the media I'm about to mention was directly inspired by the Spider-Verse movies. That is 100% an assumption on my part. All I'm thinking is, Spider-Verse movie comes out. More movies come out that look like Spider-Verse. Movies inspired by Spider-Verse. That is literally all I'm going off of. Nothing more, nothing less. So please correct me if I'm super off base with the examples in question. However, until I am proven wrong, I'm going to stick with the notion that none of the movies and shows I'm about to mention would have taken the risks in animation that they have if it wasn't for Into the Spider-Verse. I genuinely think if it wasn't for this first movie showing to studios that this level of pure creativity is something people wanted in their stories, those risks would have never been taken. But what are those movies and shows I'm alluding to, you may be wondering? I'm glad you asked. Now, I love all of these media, and I think all of them look amazing. But as I kept watching these media, my fondness for what I liked in this kind of animation style became more and more refined. This just in, a local nerd discovers having a preference. Yeah, I just watched a lot of stuff and realized what I did and didn't like more and more. So, because of those preferences, I'm going to rank and occasionally categorize these movies and shows based on a completely arbitrary set of rules going off of my personal taste. The first movies I'm going to arbitrarily categorize are what I like to call cartoony human movies, where I think more realistic human proportions leave the room for more stylized and expressive designs. Movies I will put into this category will be The Mitchells vs. the Machines, K-Pop Demon Hunters, and a new DreamWorks movie coming soon called Forgotten Island. And to be honest, I dig this. I love me some stylization. But this way of designing human characters just isn't my favorite. It still looks great in execution, don't get me wrong. It's just not my number one. I think the bottom of my ranking would have to be K-Pop Demon Hunters. The movie isn't bad in any sense, don't get me twisted. It's just my least favorite in terms of how it's animated. The movie is very cartoony and stylized and I love it for that, but the actual textures feel too hyper-realistic and smooth for my taste. It's why I like the Mitchells vs. the Machines art style more than K-Pop Demon Hunters. It's got all the texture I crave.
Nerd, I hate to burst your bubble, but don't you know that—
Shut it, Strawman! I am well aware that Sony made both The Mitchells vs. the Machines and K-Pop Demon Hunters. That doesn't mean I want all of Sony's animated movies to look exactly the same because that would be boring as hell. I'm more than happy that Sony is continuing to innovate with their movies and not just hitting copy-paste on the thing that made them famous. Just because K-Pop Demon Hunters is my least favorite of the bunch doesn't mean I don't want new things. It just means I like other things more than this. That is all. Now, the next few movies I'm going to pointlessly group together are ones I like to call painterly Animal Plus movies, where these gorgeous textures are applied to anything but humans and given to all the non-humans in the cast, usually because there are no humans in said cast to speak of. Movies I put in this category would be Dogman, The Wild Robot, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I don't know why I have this preference, but I love seeing this way of texturing cartoony animal characters a lot more than I like seeing it on cartoony human ones. Why do I like it more for cartoony animals over cartoony humans? I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But forget my indecisiveness for a second. Can we talk about how insane it is that DreamWorks made a sequel to a Shrek spinoff 10 years after it came out? One of the greatest animated movies of the year? Maybe even the decade? DreamWorks really looked over at Sony's success with Into the Spider-Verse and said, hold my stylus, because holy shit, they did not need to go that fucking hard for a Puss in Boots sequel. Everyone has already talked about this movie to death, so I'm not going to preach to a choir here. I just want to say I love this movie storybook painting aesthetic, and if this is what Shrek 5 looked like, it would have saved the entire trailer for me. I know DreamWorks has a reputation for putting out movies of varying levels of quality, but when they can cook hard. So, good on them for having variety, I guess? I'd rank all of these movies here on my list. Seeing wonderful textures like this on incredible character designs that aren't even human is such a treat on the eyes. But what happens if those characters are human? Ones that lean more on the realistic side instead of cartoony? Well, then you get my personal favorite art style, and in my opinion, the best kind of 2.5D animation. Semi-realistic humans with painterly and or comic book-like texture. Working title. Y'all, I am so serious. I love the style of animation. It just hits a sweet spot between full-on realism and full cartoon for me that just makes it so satisfying. I don't even know how to fully describe it with words without sounding a bit more deranged and even more all over the place than I already do. But just know that I hold this specific animation style close to my heart, and if I could somehow animate like this for the rest of my life, I'd actually ascend to the heavens. So imagine my surprise in my quest to watch things inspired by the Spider-Verse movie. I could only find 2 pieces of media that were anywhere close to what I was looking for. Not including Across the Spider-Verse because, that's an obvious example. And those 2 pieces of media are Intergalactic and To Be Hero X. One was a TV special made to promote Kid Cudi's new album by the same name, and the other is an anime. Wait! The other is a donghua, not an anime. Good thing I got that. Y'all can back off now. This style of animation isn't used as much in To Be Hero X, although there's possibly a really cool explanation for that, so I let it slide. But no matter what the reason, when this animation does come up, I think it's so damn pretty. The colors, the textures, the lighting, it's just incredible. And the way you can see this animation quality get better and better as the episodes go on is perfection on the eyes. X's entire episode is just a treat to watch. He has no reason looking this cool in 3D. And then there's Intergalactic. I didn't expect a movie made with the purpose of promoting a rapper's new album to actually be good, but Kid Cudi actually decided to put effort into this movie. This blocky way of texturing the characters is awesome. The lighting and backgrounds are just gorgeous. And are those actual smear frames I'm seeing? This is just amazing! This movie has no reason being so fucking cool just for promoting this guy's music album. He needs to make more movies like this. Or make more albums so we can promote them with more movies like this. I'll take anything. Enough gushing. Time for rankings. I put To Be Hero X higher, but the 3D animation doesn't show up as often throughout the current 24 episodes. And even though I understand why, I just want more of it and there's not enough for me to want to put it higher. And yeah, the Spider-Verse movies share a spot. I love them both equally, what can I say?
Hey, the number 1 spot is still blank. You went through all those movies in a single show and you haven't filled up your number 1 spot yet? What could you possibly think is better than Across the Spider-Verse?
Well... Arcane. It's Arcane. I love you, Spider-Verse, but Arcane is my number 1. No shot. Guys. Do I need to say anything? You guys see what I'm seeing, right? Don't care, I'm gonna yap anyway. This show has everything I like from the previous media all rolled up into one show. Gorgeous painterly textures, semi-realistic characters that manage to look wonderfully stylized, and a blending of 2D elements in this 3D space that I never thought possible before. I don't know how this crayon effect was achieved, but I need it injected into my veins post-haste. Hey, isn't that Isha's scene from...
We don't talk about the scene. We just don't.
I don't know what I could possibly say about Arcane. I think what I'm showing you speaks for itself. It is true that Across the Spider-Verse is my favorite animated movie ever, but Arcane has to be my favorite animated media ever. Unless Beyond the Spider-Verse or something else comes out and proves me wrong, I don't think anything else could top this as my favorite animated thing. And I am so excited to see if Arcane will be dethroned next year. If there's no more delays, that is, Mr. Sony. And honestly, that's all I've got to say on 2.5D animation, at least for right now. But if you recall, that's not what I said my video was entirely about. I also said it's about why animation means so much to me. And oh my goodness, it means so much to me. I can condense the reasons why into 3 main points: adaptability, style, and skill. I already talked about my preferred style in detail, but the great thing about animation is that it can look like anything. And I do mean anything. And because animation can look like anything, your story can look like anything. And the way it can be adapted is literally infinite. The possibilities are endless with animation. Not to mention how it's animated. How a story is animated can tell a story in itself without any dialogue and be an incredible experience to behold just through character movements and color choices. And sometimes lower quality animation can damage the perception of the story even when the story itself is actually pretty good. I don't know why this has been on screen for so long. Can we cut to the next scene, please? Animation makes the impossible possible. It can make your stories, no matter how crazy, come to life. And if your stories have a solid foundation, then it's the cherry on top to something truly amazing. And sure, that's just art in a nutshell. One could ask what makes animation any different from live action or comic books. And to that I say, absolutely nothing. Yup. Every medium of storytelling has their strengths and weaknesses when it comes down to it. Even animation. Just because I think the possibilities of how animation can look are endless doesn't mean there aren't limits in the way the stories themselves can be told. Some stories just work better in some mediums than others. I just really like animation. If Arcane was food from an all-you-can-eat buffet, I'm walking out of there like a bowling ball and taking as many leftovers as possible. It's just a personal preference thing for me at the end of the day. Not really an objective thing. You want to know what isn't objective? The final reason animation means so much to me, and honestly the most important on this list. Skill. The love I have for 2.5D animation and the medium as a whole doesn't hold a candle to the respect I have for all of the animators who can actually do all of this. Forgive me if this sounds dramatic, but what eldritch demon do the animators behind any of these movies and shows conspire with to get these done? How the hell did any of the crew on these movies do all of this without dropping dead? Honestly, the real answer is they probably didn't, but that's besides the point. My point is, I know the real answer. These animators worked their asses off for years of their lives to be able to make such beautiful movies and shows like this. And they worked and they worked some more because if they weren't going to do it, then nobody would. I say this with zero irony and 100% truth. I love every single animator who's worked on all of these movies and shows I listed here. From the bottom of my heart. Genuinely, thank you. Thank you for being part of some of the best animated media I have ever seen in my life. And thank you for shaping how I see art and how I want to make it for the rest of my life. If by some miracle anyone from these teams are listening, you proved to me that a dream I had when I was a little kid could come true. And knowing it was time, effort, and skill that got these people to where they are now tells me that I can make it to that position too. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm not the best animator. I'm not trying to be self-deprecating in a depressing way or be relatable and quirky. I'm just stating an objective fact. I am an inexperienced animator and I am not very good at this. But I seriously, and by seriously I mean desperately, want to learn how to animate in this 2.5D way. I genuinely think if I learned how to do it at least a little bit right, I could die happy. I tried to use Blender to make this kind of style months ago, but while I felt happy at the time, I look at it now and think how it's nowhere close to what I actually want it to look like. And it made me want to quit and just not try at all. But here's the thing about quitting, guys. Quitting is lame as hell, and it's for losers. Animation means a lot to me. The style of animation means a lot to me. It's taken up permanent residence in my heart and soul. And if I have to dedicate my YouTube channel, nay, my entire life, to learning how to animate and 3D model the way I love to even get a smidge closer to what I'm hoping for, then so be it. I swear to you, viewer and hopefully new subscriber if you've hit the button, I, nerd of all trades, refuse to die before learning how to do anything close to this style of animation. You have my word on that.
So, how are you gonna do that?
What?
How are you gonna learn 2.5D animation? You're not exactly in art school yet. How are you gonna make this dream of yours happen exactly?
Well, oh shit. Thanks for watching! Don't forget to like and subscribe! Or don't! I'm not your dad!